Hello and welcome to the Relocation Specialist web seminar. Today we're going to look at the ReloSpec Checkup, which is an effort to save you time by checking on all of the settings that are important in the ReloSpec software. I've logged into the demo database, and the first thing we're going to do is go to the settings page. On the settings page, the first column, the first item up there is users. So we're going to click that and select a particular user to check just a few things. You want to make sure that the ID and the password are set. When you're doing this for a new user, just know that they are not case sensitive. So if it's a capital or a lowercase, it doesn't matter here or when they log in. Now the password can be anything as long as it has 5 characters and at least one numeral in it, have a number in it. The ID, when you're selecting that for a new user, just keep in mind that it needs to be unique from all other ReloSpec users. So every ID that's out there for all ReloSpec users are unique. So the more common ones were taken many years ago. Just keep that in mind. While we're looking at the user profile here, the first field I want to bring your attention to here is the username. That's what's used internally. So it's by default what will be put for the manager consultant. It can be just a shortened name, like a first name if you want. The second field, names to be used on forms and emails, this is the name that will be inserted on outgoing emails. So that one you want to be a little more detailed. As long as you have the company and address and all the other fields filled in here, when it gets to the right side where you're going to have the email signature, you can create that yourself, or what I would suggest is that you use the auto create button. When you do that, it will create the email signature, which is very important. This is the email signature used by outgoing emails from ReloSpec. So you want to make sure that you have a lot of detail there if you want. Now, once you use the auto create button, it will insert these additional lines below here. One is the email address, so people can just click on that and start a new email if they want. It's very convenient. But notice the last line. It says, click here to submit a referral. ReloSpec will create this line for you so that if you have an agent or a contact or a client, anyone that wants to supply to you a new referral, they can just click that link. It will open the referral submit form. They can fill out the information and it comes right into your database. We'll be talking more about the referral submit form a little bit later in this webinar, but I wanted to make you aware that it does get inserted when you use that auto create button. There is one other thing I want to show you here, and that's the theme. I've noticed when I log in and look at some of your the ways in which you're using ReloSpec, that there are some odd color themes that are out there. They are all choices, but I just want to make sure that you do know that you do have choices. The color themes have to do with background colors, font colors, and so on. And you can see all of the choices that there are. The one that we use by default for new users is Ultra. So if you ever want to change that, it is set for each individual user. You can just come in here, select the one that you want from the drop list, and then update the current record. When you log in the next time, you'll have whichever theme that you selected. Okay, that's it for the users. Let's move on to a couple other settings here. First one is favorite forms. As you may have noticed, there are many, many forms out there available for you to use in ReloSpec. In an effort to limit that to just the ones that are your favorites, you can add or delete from the favorites list here. And then when you click Forms, by default, it selects the favorite forms, and it will display just the limited number that you have selected. If you want to add a new form, just click Add New, select the one you want from the list, and click Add New Record. If you're done using one, don't want it in there anymore, simply select it from the list, click Delete, and then it will be gone from the list. So that's favorite forms. The same works for favorite reports. As you know, there are many, many reports, and you may want just a limited list of favorites. I would suggest looking through those if you need help selecting which reports should be your favorites or which ones will give you the information you want. Fill out a help desk request or just call one of the support people, and we'll be happy to help you with that. Next is upload an email attachment. When you click that button here, it opens the Upload Utility page. Think of this as a forms library. These are all of the forms that you can upload and then use as attachments. So for example, if you have a BMA that you have the agent fill out on new referrals, you can upload it, save it in your library here, and then just name it as an attachment in the outgoing email. There's no limit to the number of attachments that you have in your library, and the attachments can be any size. They're not limited to the format of the page either. It can be anything. It could be a PDF or an Excel spreadsheet, a Word doc, whatever you want, can be uploaded and then used. Next, we're going to look at the action plans. The button for action plans is over on the right side. It is found elsewhere in the ReloSpec software. But here in Settings, we're going to select Action Plans, and it will display the action plans in the top part of the page, and then the action plan items below it. Now, action plans, think of them as each action plan as a list of tasks that you want performed. Let's say every time you have an incoming referral, you want to send an assignment out to the agent. You want to send an incoming information sheet. Perhaps you do both those things on the first day, and then wait 3 days and send an update request, and then repeat that update request every 14 days. Well, those 3 items would be action plan items, and they would be associated with an action plan. And so you can have as many action plans as you want, and each action plan can have as many items as you want. Now, the thing I'll point out here is that in this second column, we have number of days from today. If you see a 0 in there, it means it's going to be sent out the exact same day that this gets entered. Or it's going, more specifically, it's going to get scheduled for today. If it has another number in there, then when the action plan is processed by ReloSpec, it will calculate the date. So if there's a 3 in there, for example, then it will schedule the item to be done 3 days from today. Next, notice that in the Who, Send to Whom field here, we have assigned agent or client or the assigned agent's text message. In that case, when the item gets processed, it will look up the assigned agent for this particular referral. So let's say we're putting in a new referral and we select this action plan that we're looking at now. Then when it's processed, ReloSpec will look for the email address for the assigned agent in this referral for the first item. For the second item, it will look up the email address for the client and insert that. And then for the last one, it will look up the text message, in other words, the cell phone number for the agent, and on that date, it will send out a text. So all of those things get scheduled, and rather than have specific email addresses, we say generally who it's going to go to so that these action plan items can be applied to all your referrals as they're added. And there are other details that you can see here. Which form are we going to send, and are we going to have a copy of this sent to somebody else? All of those settings are available to you when you're filling out your action plan items. Now, having mentioned action plans, there are standard action plans which you may or may not have in your database. If you've been using ReloSpec for quite a while, it's likely that you don't have all of what we would now call the standard action plans. When you select Get Standard Action Plans, which is the second one over here, it will give you a list of the ones that you should have. Now, you may notice some of these have been around for a while, and you may already have them, or you may have modified them to fit your purposes. When you click Start to add those action plan to your list, if it sees that you already have an action plan by the same name, it will skip over those, so it won't undo the work that you've already done. If you don't have an action plan that's in the standard list, then it will add it for you. And I would suggest that one of the first things you want to do is just come in here, get standard action plans, and click Start. And if you already have them all, great. If you don't, it will fill them in for you. Okay, that's enough on the settings page. We're going to go back to the main menu page for now. On the main menu page, below this gray bar are what we would refer to as the express items. The first two on the left side are Start a New Outgoing Referral and Start a New Incoming Referral. Now, for just a moment, I'm going to talk to those ReloSpec users who've been using ReloSpec for quite a while. I know that you're used to going to the client list page, and when you want to add a new referral, you're used to just clicking Add New. You fill in the fields that you want, but then there's a number of other steps that you have to do. And that is that once the referral is in there, then you have to click Action Plans, select the action plan you want, run the action plan, close that page, and then if there's any of them that are due, any of those items today, which likely there are, then you have to click Autopilot and send the Autopilot items, and then close the Autopilot page. Okay, that's a lot of extra steps that you really don't have to do if you use the new Express form. Let's do an incoming referral. I'll give you an example. When you click Start a New Incoming Referral, it gives you a form that's similar but abbreviated to the client list page. It has the fields that you're most likely going to use, and it is divided into sections. The first section is the referring broker. Now, this is an incoming, and so this would be the broker who's sending you this information. If you have worked with them before, you can look them up from the table, select them, click a button, and it copies all the information in here, which makes it very convenient for not having to retype information that you've used before. If they're new, this is the first time that you're ever using this particular broker, and you want them saved so that they're available the next time, just fill in the information here and click Save the Contacts, and then it'll be there next time you have another incoming referral. The next section is Assigned Agent. Here, look up from the Agents table, select the agent, click the button, and it fills in the information. It's an incoming referral in this case, so you may or may not know who the referring agent is. If you do, fill it in. If you don't, skip it. Next is Customer Information. This is where we're going to select what type it is. It defaults to active. If there's a file number, we can fill it in. The only fields that are required here are the referral type and the client last name, and they're designated with this asterisk following the field name. So we fill in the information that we know. Then down at the bottom of the page, this is where things get much more convenient for you. Notice at the bottom of the page is action plan to be run. And we can get a drop list here of all of the various action plans that you happen to have in your database. By default, this form uses the Express Incoming action plan. Remember when we added the standard action plans? That's one of them that got added. And you may want to edit what actually happens with Express Incoming. You can do that anytime that you want. But we select the action plan to be run and then click Submit. Now when we do that, all of the steps that I described earlier are done for you automatically. It will save this record. It looks up the action plan, applies the action plan items, and if any of them are scheduled for today, it automatically sends them out and updates everything that it just did in your notes for the individual referral. So in one click down here when we submit, it does all of those things for you. Now, once in a while, we run into somebody that says, well, I clicked submit, but nothing happened. It did get saved, but none of the other automatic things happened. And we're going to look at that when we look at browser settings in a little bit. If you don't get a pop-up window with it telling you what it's doing, and then gives you the opportunity to close that window when it's done, it just takes a few seconds. But if you're not getting that, then pop-ups are blocked on your PC. That's why they're not getting run. Okay, and I'm going to show you how you can overcome that in just a little bit. So that's the incoming referral page. I'm going to close that. Outgoing is very similar. It's just that if it's outgoing, then it's your referring agent that you would look up. The rest of it's fairly similar. And notice that the default action plan is the Express Outgoing as opposed to Express Incoming. All right, going down the list in the main menu page here, Accept Incoming Referrals. Now, every time you log in, you should notice whether or not anything is listed here in Accept Incoming Referrals. This is because this gives you the number of records that people are trying to send to you. What they've done is they have inserted them into your import table. If you click that link, it allows you to view the records that are in your import table. Now, again, these are coming from other brokers. They may be coming from agents that are using that referral submit form. I mentioned it when we were talking about the email signature, that the last line was, click here to send a referral. Well, when they fill that out, that information comes into your import table, and that's what we're looking at here. Now, notice the third column here is duplicate client already exists with a question mark. When records are listed here in the import table, ReloSpec with each individual record will look to see, is there a record with the same client name? And if so, then it mentions it here. Yes, there may be a duplicate. And if you want to see other details about that record in your referrals table, it does give you additional information. Click Yes, See Why, and it will tell you every record that is a possible duplicate. Now, just because it's a possible duplicate, you may still want it in your database, but this gives you a very quick check. At the top of the page, there are two radio buttons. The first one says Duplicate Check, use the client full name only. So right now, when it's doing a duplicate check, it's looking for the first name plus the last name of the client. And if they match something that already exists in your referrals table, that's when you get this Yes, See Why. Okay. Now, there is a more complete duplicate check. If we click the radio button, the bottom one here, now it will check for duplicates, not only for the name, but also any duplicate email addresses or any duplicate phone numbers for home phone, work phone, or client cell phone. One other thing about the import table is that once we see an item in here that we do want to bring into the database, the quickest and best way to do this is to click the select button on the same line for the one we want to bring in. The reason for this is because when we click select, it takes the selected record and inserts it into this incoming information, or not information sheet, but incoming form, just like what we saw under the express incoming form just a minute ago. It allows us to view all of the information coming in, including any notes and instructions, allows us to assign an agent if we want to, and notice at the bottom, once again, we can run an action plan on it right now. So if we want to, we can assign the agent, click accept, and then what will happen is it will take this record out of the import table and into the referrals table, run the action plan, and send any autopilots that need to go out, all in one quick, convenient step. So that's the import table. Below that, on the main menu page, are autopilots waiting to be sent. When we click this link, it will display all the autopilots. It's as though we open the autopilot page and we send them the way you're probably used to doing it now. Two things about this. Number one, these are your autopilots. If you have multiple people in your office using ReloSpec, these are autopilots that are assigned to you. Others will have their autopilots. Now there's a way to view all of the autopilots, but when looking at this express setting, it shows you how many are waiting for you to be sent, the ones that are assigned to you. And while we're on autopilots, the second thing I wanted to mention was that if you want, you can have your autopilots sent for you automatically each day. That is a feature, it's an option known as Autopilot Express. Now, what that does is each morning, ReloSpec will look to see if you have any autopilots that are due to go out that morning and send them for you. It is an option, but it does not cost anything to use this option. You just have to let us know if you want those autopilots sent for you. If you do, then each morning, early in the morning, they will be sent. You don't have to log in for them to be sent. They're just sent for you automatically. So that's Autopilot Express. Just let one of us know if you want that for you. You can have it for a while. If you change your mind, you can let us know, and we'll turn that feature off for you. To the right of autopilots is responses. If autopilots are outgoing items, that's your outbox, if you will. Responses are the incoming. That's your inbox. Say, for example, you're sending update requests out to agents. They click the link in the form, they fill it out, they submit. All of those, by default, come back to your responses table. Once again, these are responses for records that are assigned to you. Not for everyone in the office, but just for you. When you click the responses link here, it will show you the responses that are coming back. And then as you review them, you can process them one at a time or all at once. And then they're moved from the responses table into the notes for each individual referral. So you'll know exactly what's going on with each referral. Now, let's look for just a minute at a few other settings. I mentioned earlier that when you run the action plan off this express form, you had to see the little pop-ups. And let's look at those browser settings. Now, I'm going to show it to you now for Internet Explorer because that's the browser that I happen to be using. But the same settings are available on Chrome and Firefox. You may need to do a search for where you find pop-up blocker, that sort of thing. But I'll show it to you here for Internet Explorer because that's the one that I think most of our users are using. The first thing we're going to do is take care of the pop-ups. Make sure that ReloSpec is enabled for that. So I'm going to click the gear, come down to Internet Options, and under General, under Content, whoops, where do we have pop-ups? It's under Privacy. Click Privacy, Settings, and then what you want to look for is www.ReloSpec Cloud. If you don't have it, just type it up here, .ReloSpec Cloud, and it doesn't matter if it's uppercase, lowercase, whatever. And then click the Add button. Once that's been added, then it'll be in the list, and next time you run those action plan items out of your Express form, then it will do those items for you automatically. Okay, it's got to open that pop-up in order for it to be processed. One other thing, well, two others actually. On the General tab, if we look at Settings, you should have that it's going to update web pages and check for newer versions of stored pages either every time you visit the web page or automatically. Any of these top three will be fine. Once in a while we'll run into someone that has this marked as never. Don't update it. And what will happen is ReloSpec there'll be a new version of the form, or there'll be data from the client inserted into the form, and it doesn't get in there because your browser is not checking for updates. So just have it update each time. That's on the General tab. One other thing is Content. Now, on Content, there is a setting here for autocomplete. Notice that on Forms, we suggest that you uncheck the forms. Now, what autocomplete is, let's say that you start typing in one of the fields, and then let's say that I'm typing in the client last name, and it's Smith, and I type SM, and instantly the browser is trying to insert, oh, do you mean SMITH, or do you mean SMYTHE, or something that comes after SM that you've typed before, and the browser will save all of those entries. Now, that's fine if it does not slow things down, but sometimes the browser will get really slow when it's trying to autocomplete. And we suggest that you turn it off. Now, you can have autocomplete for usernames and passwords, for browsing history on your address bar. Notice I have those checked in mine, but for forms, once in a while we'll hear somebody say, gee, every time I get to the state, I go to type in just a two-letter state, and the thing just dies. And maybe it wakes up like 3 or 4 minutes later. Well, that's your browser that's trying to do that autocomplete. So if you don't have the issue, don't worry about it. If you do, this is the first thing to look at. Turn it off for forms. Okay, so that's enough on the browser settings. One other thing that you should check for, since we're doing a checkup here, I want to make sure that you have your logo, your company logo installed. The quickest way to know if you've got it is if you're in the client list, just look at the accounting sheet details. If your company logo is in the upper left here, then it's been uploaded. If you need to change it, or if you don't have one, then that can be uploaded very easily in the settings page, right here under Upload Logo. It does need to be a .gif format. Okay, so be sure and change the format. Just save it as a .gif if it isn't already. One other thing about logos, you want them as square-shaped as possible, because in the ReloSpec forms, we allow a certain amount of width. 150 pixels is what we allow. Okay, so if your logo is very tall and not very wide, that logo is going to appear very large because it's going to expand to fill 150 pixels wide. If it's not very tall at all but very wide, your logo will appear to be very small. So best practice is just to have as square-shaped as possible for your logo. Now, I have mentioned a couple times the referral submit form. We're going to look at that, and then we'll be done on this particular webinar. The referral submit form, if we go to forms and the client list, click forms. Let me show you what this looks like. This is the referral submit form. And notice we have a couple. The referral submit form, we also have referral submit form needs analysis, which was added a year or so ago. The referral submit form is the one that you'll want to use. And this is a form that your agents can use to submit referrals to you. So let's say that they list a house, the people are moving away, and they want to give you that referral. Well, then you could send this to them. You can email it to them, or make it a little more convenient. You can click that link, and then up here on the URL address line, if you just copy this and paste that as a link, say on your own website, or whatever place is convenient for those that will be submitting the referrals, they can click on the link and it will open this page. Notice that the company name is inserted for you automatically. There's some other details up here, but that way they can click the link and open this form. Now, you may recall in the email signature, we added a line on the auto create. Click here to submit a referral. When you click that, it opens that same form. Okay, so that's the referral submit form. And I know there's a number of brokers that once in a while they'll have a contest on who can submit as many outgoing referrals in a certain period of time, and have a contest for it. Well, this makes it very convenient for the agents to submit those. It also makes it very convenient for you because you don't have to retype that information. The agent's name is already in that form. You know who the referring agent is. And when it comes into the import table, you can assign the action plan and have all of that, the other steps we talked about, done for you automatically. Well, we've covered a number of items here in the ReloSpec Checkup. I hope it's been helpful for you. If you need any additional help, be sure and let one of our support people know. We're here to help you. Thanks again, and have a great day.